Everybody, this is Rydo, and we're back to another recording of Hearthstone. Today is Monday, July 22nd, and we are on the Americas account. We have, let's see, some Shaman class cards, 6 mechs, and Battlecry cards. Let's get rid of Shaman class cards. I don't want to particularly play them. 3 victories with Priest and Warlock. While we should be doing a Tavern Brawl with some of these, it doesn't feel like I really need to. This week I'm off bounce. As soon as they introduced the 7 day a week, 7 days minus 1 hour a week Tavern Brawl situation, they gave us 2 Tavern Brawls that in a row that pretty much guaranteed you'd get the reward regardless. Seems like new cards are coming a little bit faster, but then Hearthstone has been weird about teasing and saying a new expansion is coming out, and then they don't say the exact date, and it's like 2 or 3 months later than what you would actually expect it to be. Also, I would say there's a situation where this year in particular, expansions have been coming out a little fast and furious, while the cards haven't really been that good. I guess Warlock or Priest is what we're playing here. So Zoo Warlock or Silence Priest. Let's try Silence Priest. In an effort to kind of shorten things up, I've opted to not go through my Twitter feed right now. So I have about 16 new tweets that I'm not going to even look at until the end of the stream. And we'll just go through the news that we have. Over the weekend, I did schedule about 30 episodes of Hearthstone, and that's pretty much it. I was more busy myself with doing the Lego Apollo Lander, Moonlander set. This is the minifig Moonlander set, not to be confused with the Saturn V rocket set, which I have already done, and for the 50th anniversary of the moon landing. It's a pretty nice set as a model and display on the shelf. It's a terrible set per se for little kids who want to play. It's a terrible play set, as they call it, because in the lunar lander there's really a tiny little box in which you can put the minifigs. The minifigs themselves have very generic yellow faces instead of white faces, so they're not designed in any way to look like Buzz Aldrin or Neil Armstrong, the 2 people that landed on the moon. And you have them in a spacesuit, so you don't see their faces at all anyways. So that's a detail that's missing in it. It has a lot of stickers, and most people hate stickers. And I particularly hate hate when they do stickers in Lego sets. But it looks really nice as a display, and the book comes with some information at the beginning and throughout, talking about parts of the lunar lander, but not a ton of detail. It's not a actual educational experience. Let's see. It is, I believe, the first Lego Life integrated set I've done. So it has a QR code that you can scan into this Lego-centric social media Facebook type app that also will build your collection and tell you how many pieces of Lego you own and what sets you own. But it's not backward compatible to any of the old barcodes. So My Brick Set is an app, I think, or My Brick Link is an app I use on my cell phone to track all the Lego I have, and that by far is a better better at, because you can scan barcodes into it and synchronize it to a different to the website, or my Brickset or Bricklink, or I think it's Bricklink is the name of the website. So there's that. Level by Level Gaming's on the chat, says hello. Haven't quit Hearthstone, I see. No, I don't plan on quitting Hearthstone until the Marvel card game comes out, and I'm confident on that. Inherently, I like going through the video game news and new games that come out on Steam, even if it is mostly just a slog of going through terrible games that come out on Steam, since most of the games are terrible. It keeps me informed, and it keeps me at a different worldview and perspective as far as what the video game industry is, or the PC gaming industry is. If I wasn't looking at the games that were coming out on Steam, just like almost all of them, then I would only be hearing about games that had paid for promotion through things like Giant Bomb, or even TechRaptor, or Gamasutra, or Gametsu. I would allow myself to be a very blinded consumer at that point, and not a particularly informed consumer as far as my options are. Similar things happen a lot of times at grocery stores. If you go to some grocery stores, they may have the store brand salsa and another brand of salsa, say Picante, but they almost certainly don't have every kind of brand of salsa that would be available to purchase, as an example. So if you were a salsa connoisseur, you would want to go into more depth and find where these other salsas are coming from. And because I want to make a long story short, because I want to know that information, like, it becomes ridiculous for me to just cover the news in the games that comes out. There's too much dead air in between the breaks there, so I need some kind of slow-based game to play, and Hearthstone fills that. Plus, still there's a sliding group of people, a slowly declining group of people that want to see Hearthstone. I think there will be a lot more interest on the Marvel game once it comes out, but right now there's nothing that I've determined that works better than Hearthstone. If I were to play Yu-Gi-Oh! On Steam, that's a free-to-play game, that would be something to consider, but it wouldn't be better than Hearthstone or more popular. If I was to play Magic Arena, that would probably be slightly more popular at this point, but it would also take incredibly longer, and so there's a time balance. Let's try Zoo Warlock, since I didn't succeed too well there. So yeah, those are pretty much the only two options that are valid in my mind, is play Magic Arena and take a lot longer to do a stream every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, or play Yu-Gi-Oh! And take about the same time, maybe a little less, but then have fewer people interested in it. So I'm kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. There's no... I don't think Gwent is popular enough, nor is it particularly shorter to be considered. I don't think there's too many other things. I could try to play something that was a single player game centric, like Slay the Spire, but I don't know how long that would stay popular. I definitely don't want to get into something like Dota or Auto Chess, which are just not really my forte or my interest. But I might find something out there that's not a collectible card game, but is something that continuously grows and has interest. Level by level gaming asks, do you enjoy Hearthstone? It's alright. Not really, though. Not at this point. Not 5 years in. I think any main streamer would probably tell you the same in at least a private conversation. There's 5 years into playing the game, there's no new surprises except for any new cards that come out, and then when we get expansions, there really isn't too much new or surprising even in the expansions. So what we really need would be if there were just insane cards in the next expansion, or something that you could not normally do. For instance, if there was a card that said, play this card, a common card says, play this card and you will lose it forever, but you'll win the game. There was a Magic the Gathering card like that, where it's like, tear up this, I think it was called Confetti or something, tear up this card in reality and throw it in the face, you win. If you do, you win the game. So you can play it, but you lost the card. That's something you could do with a digital collectible card game. It's not something you could do with a real world card game so well. But yeah, if there was just some insane cards thrown out in the next expansion, and they just took a crazy approach to it, that might make it wild and crazy enough to interest old players like me, but maybe not. There's definitely some other issues that would just say too little too late. There's just going to be a amount of burnout that will always exist.
As you command. Get in there and fight, maggot!
Play that. Do that. And I could play one more if I had room. Played so well there. Hearthstone's fine. It's just getting old. That's pretty much it. And it's transitioning from a place where I imagine when the first generation of players who played Magic the Gathering, when it was just Series 1, maybe Series 2, maybe Series 3. And I played Magic the Gathering after that first generation, but during the expansion of Ice Age. I imagine that first generation of players, a lot of people grew out of playing Magic the Gathering and decided instead to do other things. And everybody that was left after that point, still playing Magic, were just so pot committed to, they had spent hundreds to thousands of dollars buying cards. They had all the binders, they had everything sorted. They became the equivalent of the comic book nerd who has an entire basement full of hundreds to thousands of dollars worth of comic books and just long box after long box. I think that's kind of where Hearthstone is getting, is that we are hitting the end of the first generation of players in Hearthstone, and it's going to be a challenge, to say the least, to figure out how to make a second generation join the game and enjoy the game and want to stick with the game. And I'm not 100% sure that there will be much of a second generation of Hearthstone players. The good news, I would say, is I don't hate Hearthstone. Like, it's still fine. It's still the game it always was, for the most part. I kind of hate that it's a little pay to win, but I've seen a lot worse pay to win games. I kind of hate that so many of the cards are now in Wild. But beyond that, there's really not too much to hate. I hate that the game takes so long to play a specific game if you're going to actually win or try to win. But I could be in a lot worse position. And in all fairness, if you looked at every single game I've covered on my YouTube channel, I've probably covered, let's say, 100 to maybe 120 games. Either spotlighted them or played them all the way through. Very, very few, I would say 5 maybe, are games that I'd actually want to go back and play a second time. Everything just has a lifespan to it. Particularly for me, somebody who wants to play a lot of games, not somebody who wants to play Counter-Strike Go or something like that over and over again, and try to become an expert at any specific game. So I'm not one of those video game players that buys 1, 2, maybe 3 games a year and that's all they play. I'm a video game player who tries to buy at least 12 games a year, and frankly I'm getting a lot more than that every Steam sale anyways. Even for 2019, when I've slowed down, like, there's probably been at least 14 games I've covered so far this year, because I've had 2 time slots, and every time slot gets usually used up after a month per game. So yeah, there's probably been at least 14 games I've covered this year, and that's with me slowing down. So yeah, variety is the spice of life. Interesting.
Get in there and fight, maggot!
Hey, catch!
Let's go ahead and play. So, alright, where were we? We were covering games that came out on Steam. We have a game on Steam here called Dreams of Solari, Chapter 1. Looks like it's tagged as an adventure RPG. I like these still screenshots, but would want to see what the actual game looks like, because this looks like this might be just a visual novel style game, which is mostly text-based. Yeah. Well, all I'm seeing here is text, 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 text. More text, more text, more text. So, yeah. While these stationary images do look very Blade Runner-esque and look interesting, the actual game I see doesn't look that interesting. It's free to play, English only, says it has full English audio. I would argue it probably doesn't, because that's a lot of text to have somebody voice. So I'm not going to put that on the follow list. Let's see. Will this work? Yes.
Pitchy, go, get him!
Almost out of time.
Hey, catch! Hey, catch!
In the turn there. There was another thing I wanted to talk about that I think over the weekend from all that Amazon Prime shopping I did.
Reporting for duty.
I bought a Samsung Evo 970 Pro, I believe, or maybe just a 970. A top-of-the-line NVMe M2 SSID, and I put it into my computer, which is probably 4 years old, maybe 5 years old. And unfortunately, this is why I like building all of my computers, my computer at the same time, because all the technology is the same and it's designed to mostly work with each other. Unfortunately, the M2 SSD only connects through my motherboard at a PCI Express 2.0 times 2 connection speed. What does that mean? It means it probably is still faster than plugging in through a standard SATA 6 gigabits per second theoretical data transfer rate, but not as fast as it should. And particularly in my case, every speed test I'm running says it's actually way underperforming. It should be connecting at a PCIe 2.0 times 4 connection speed, and I think particularly in my case that the difference has severely slowed things down. I'm gonna put this guy back up to his high point in his health.
Why do you go?
Come on. So, what does this eventually mean? It means that I need to buy a $16 adapter card and put the M2 memory SSD, which is, it looks like a stick of chewing gum in size and shape. It's very thin. I need to take it out of the plug that's on my motherboard and plug it into this adapter card, and then plug the adapter card into the motherboard as if it was like a video card into the PCI Express slots. Also, I found out on my motherboard, if I do use the slot on the motherboard, it disconnects the last two of the SATA connections. So it's like, oh, you can't have both. That's crazy. You have to pick. And I'm like, the idea that you could have hard drives plugged in and working perfectly fine. You install a new SSD into that slot, and then all of a sudden those two hard drives would disappear is insane. It's an insane thought that should never occur, particularly since it doesn't seem like anything outside of the manual would even warn you about that. I am currently running on that new SSD, but I have not used it in any game, and I'm a little reluctant to start recording a game and potentially say, boy, these load times are incredibly long, when in actuality it's because the SSD I'm using is slower, or because of the plug it's plugged into, than what I had before, which was a Samsung 850, 870, 860 maybe. I think it's an 850. So theoretically, this new SSD is twice as fast as the old SSD. They're both about 500 gigabytes, but I needed more space. I've written over 63 terabytes of data to my old SSD, so it's been definitely put through its paces, and it would not surprise me if that fails eventually. But currently what I needed was something that would just focus on giving me more space for working on recording video. Alright, let's just kill this. There we go. I would also warn people, when you start using a M2 memory card instead of a hard drive SSD. They start measuring things in bytes per second versus bits per second, which can be confusing and requires you to actually do math. You have to multiply the speed you're getting by 8, and then it's a weird apples to oranges comparison after because of that, or 8 apples compared to 1 apple comparison to be more accurate. Yeah, I guess we need one more Warlock victory. And it doesn't feel like the application that comes with Samsung SSDs are particularly the best at making that comparison when you run their internal performance benchmark. I can say I'm pretty happy with what I use to just copy copy the partition. Samsung has its own migration thing that would just clone your current Windows 10 install to the new SSD. I didn't use that. I used something else that I had already installed, but it worked perfectly fine. It doesn't seem to me like anything changed or affected anything at all. My Windows seems perfectly stable. It's been running perfectly fine. I did realize that my backup server has been turned off, and this is an example of me not really getting around to working on it in any way. I should, but it has been turned off for a couple of weeks since the power last went out, which is not what I want for the backup server. I want it always on, because if it's always on, the odds are a little bit lower that anything will break on it. It's weird, but you will destroy a car by leaving it sitting for a year more than you would destroy a car by leaving it idling for a year. And the same is true for computers. Although how you would have a car idle for a year, you'd have to constantly put gas in it. But yeah. And what I just said as a statement may not actually be true for cars. You might actually do way more damage to a car leaving it idle for a year than. But I guess that what I meant to say there is, if driving a car around for a year will make the car work as expected a lot more than having a car sit in the parking lot for a year, because the battery dies and the oil gets gunked up and the gas gets old. That's one of the things about like the zombie apocalypse, is that gasoline after a year or two would be so old and so useless. You're really not gonna get anything from that.
Flash fails. Try crystallize.
Job's done.
Was there something else? Well, I said in a previous recording that I bought a security camera system and a video doorbell system, and if I can wire it all up and everything is communicating on an analog video signal, they should all work with each other. Even though they're completely not designed to work with each other, the connectors are completely different, and there is a lot of opportunity for mistakes to happen there. Well, I can now report that so far so good on that system. I got the video doorbell and the camera system. The camera system works perfectly fine by itself. The doorbell system works perfectly fine by itself. That's to be expected. But also interconnecting it and making adapter connect cables has worked also. There's a slight question as far as which wires do what, because they were labeled on the video doorbell, but you had 6 wires there, and and trying to figure out which couple of them or the audio and video signal was a little difficult, but I figured it out. Oddly, AK was labeled on the connector, and I'm like, what in the world is AK? There was a wire that was labeled AK and a wire that was called AS, and so I thought, oh well, AS must mean analog sound. I tried it, apparently not. Apparently AS probably stands for active switch or analog switch or something like that. It's more than likely the doorbell button to activate the video doorbell system. So AK actually was the wire for the sound, and then the video was labeled CVB or something like that, which stood for like composite video, and so I figured that out pretty easily. So yeah, with the right amount of wiring, I can now hook the video doorbell in as the first camera on an 8-camera camcorder security system, which means when the camera on the doorbell comes on, it will see something and record it in that with the rest of the camera's recordings. However, unlike all the rest of the cameras that are constantly on and constantly looking at things, the camera on the video doorbell system does not seem like it has a particular way to activate itself and just always be on. That would be an interesting trick, and if I took the thing apart and was a little bit more confident in my technical skill, there might be something to that, but then the camera itself probably isn't rated to constantly run like that. But the thing about Nest doorbells, and this is definitely not a Nest doorbells, I bet their cameras aren't on all the time either. They probably only come on when they detect motion, and after they detect motion they start recording. Oh, they might be on the whole time. This and this and this. So in its current setup, when people walk up and click the doorbell, it'll go from the camcorder. The security system will stop saying video loss. It'll turn on the camera and record things for like 90 seconds or so, and then that will be that. So inherently, it's probably still a pretty smart idea to have another security camera looking at your front door on top of a video doorbell. I haven't 100% figured out where I want to put the other cameras. I'm now down to 7 slots that I can plug in. The good news though is that the do I really want to transform this into something? Not really. The one extra camera, as long as I don't fry a camera in the installation process, will actually plug into a TV and work, at least in a black and white mode, perfectly fine. So I can just give it away, or I could just hook a camera in directly to a TV, and you would probably need something like a VCR at that point to record it. Would be the easiest way, without just buying another camcorder system, which also probably wouldn't be too expensive. I will say I got a good deal on Prime Day for the 8 camcorder system, but 8 might not be as many as you would want. So going up to 16 or 32 might not be a bad idea. Frankly, if you're really trying to do it the right way, there is a good argument around the there's a good argument, I think, around the idea of expanding to a 16 or 32-bit system, or a digital system that could potentially have a lot more. Digital systems, I think, would be a future-proof, more intelligent way to go with it. But the price for digital cameras, I bet, are way more expensive. My system came with long style cameras and round dome style cameras. The long style cameras seem to be a little bit more weatherproof, which is a big concern that I've heard about, whereas the dome style cameras might be weatherproof and it might not be. So I'm imagining I'm going to put the dome style cameras inside my house and the long style cameras outside. They all have an interesting effect in which they make a clicking sound when they switch between their regular mode and the night vision mode. So the ones in the house might get a little annoying if they're positioned in the wrong place. I think in particular also if you put them looking out a window, the reflection on the window or the clouds outside may have it switch up quite a lot between it. The clicking sound is almost certainly a physical relay, which is a good thing, but it's also a noisy thing. But once you got anywhere outside with them, I doubt anybody would ever hear the clicking. So it's not it's not a real problem. It just caught me off guard. Let's see. Can't do anything, so on my turn.
I will crush you.
But I've yet to make the connector to connect the camera security system back to the video doorbell monitor, but there's no reason why I don't believe that will work in one way or the other. My way to do it, I think, will be to try to get it so that the video out from the security system goes directly to the doorbell monitor. If that doesn't work, I will simply take the video signal that's coming from the video camera and send that to the monitor and the security system. The difference there really isn't much. It's just kind of a preference. Let's see. Can we survive this turn? I don't think we can. There we go. But the wiring all worked. Everything is analog. The video doorbell is a 720p resolution. All the other cameras are at 1080p resolution. It all seems to work, though. It's just fine. It's fine. The audio on the video camera seems to be a weird shared audio for both sides. So there might be some weirdness in wiring that up too, but shouldn't really be a problem either. If worst case scenario, what would happen is that the security system would just get the audio of the person at the doorbell and not the audio of the person talking back, which works perfectly fine. That's perfectly fine by me. Of course, inherently, if there was ever a attempted break-in, the police would come in and want to take the whole thing for themselves, and you'd never see it again. It would be taken as evidence and not released until several years later. Unless the police are going to be really, really nice and just let you take a backup, let them collect a backup off a hard drive, if they know how to do that. And that's the thing, is that they probably wouldn't know how to do it or want to bother with that. Instead, they would just take the whole unit and just say, all right, we're going to just walk off with your entire system, your hard drive, and the unit itself. Of course, I'm following standard rules, like basic intelligent things that people might not think about. Is like, don't put it in bedrooms, don't put it in bathrooms, don't put cameras in bedrooms or bathrooms. Even in your own house, it's not a good policy. If the police do have to look at that footage, they probably aren't going to appreciate having to see that, and it's certainly not going to look good if you had them in there. And frankly, for inside the house, all you need to do is cover any kind of doorways that aren't being covered by the outside, which ideally you would want to have coverage from the outside, and then you would want you would want just the coverage of main thoroughfares, so things that would be like hallways. That way, if somebody was breaking into your house robbing it, they would almost certainly walk through the hallway multiple times, and you would catch no faces, assuming it's not covered. It is really weird that the cameras only worked when plugged into a TV in black and white, and it kind of makes me wonder if there was a colorization happening after the fact on the security camera system, but I don't know. I don't know why that would be the case. But that's how it worked on my TV. Maybe it will work on a different TV. I was not particularly willing to plug it into a bunch of TVs, just in fear that it might blow up a TV, which, after spending all this money on the security system, the last thing I want to do is end up having to buy a new TV too. Alright, I'm going to do this and this, and then I'm going to attack with this, and then I'm going to play this, and then I'm going to do straw first, and then I'm going to do this. Okay. Now, this is a rush of 3. This is a rush of 2. And this all attacks. So yeah, everything is working. The video doorbell system came with 2 ends to make your own wire if you had the wire, which basically you would need a 6 or 8 wire telephone wire, not internet wire, not a Cat 5, Cat 5e, or Cat 6 style wire, because those wires are twisted, and I imagine that twisting would actually interfere with the signal in a weird way. Twisting only makes sense in networking because it's designed to do that. So you would need a non-twisted wire, which most people wouldn't have, and it would probably cost more. It also came with, I would say, about a yard worth of a wire that would only make sense if the video doorbell and the monitor connecting to it were on the other side of each other. So if you had a video doorbell on your front door and you had a nice and strong front door, then maybe it would make sense then to use that wire. Otherwise it doesn't, and it's just there as a way of proving that the device actually works. So it's a bit of a screw job in that, and yeah, I'm gonna have to order a longer cable that then I will have to also cut in half and connect, and I'm going to try to use some connectors that are spring loaded so I don't even have to solder or twist and wire cap the wires, because they're kind of small wires. But yeah, the project seems to be working. Didn't play fast enough. And I'm happy that this electronics wiring project is working. Certainly there was a lot of room for failure, and if you'd done the wrong thing, you would have been out. I would have been out a couple $100 probably if I just had fried the circuitry on something. And there's still a possibility of that happening. I'm not at the final stages. I'm just at the point where the concept has been proven. But that's more than enough about that. I've spoken at length about that project, and I'll probably have not a lot to say more about it until it's finalized. The main thing is, once I have everything settled, there is a level of issues certainly that I'm not going to handle or deal with, which is running the wires. So I'm actually going to hire somebody else to deal with that. We need to play mechs and deal damage. So mechs would be paladin almost certainly. So yeah, I've done the adapter making and I'll buy all the stuff, but I'm going to have somebody else actually crawl through the ceiling and run the wires. Running the wires should be moderately easy though. Half of all of the places where the wires go already have wires going down them, so it's simply a matter of sticking more wires down the hole, maybe drilling some new holes next to the current hole, and down the wall. I don't think any of my walls had any kind of fire breaks in them that would make that particularly difficult. Maybe one of them did. There is a slight debate on whether I want to put the security system in the master bedroom or more towards the center of the house. I think the master bedroom is a better place just because all my other electronics are in the center of the house and it's taking up too many outlet plugs. It's just like all the electronics on one circuit is a little silly. And putting it in the master bedroom means that if you had a lock on your door in the master bedroom, you could lock yourself and barricade yourself in that area, and have the security camera output go to the TV or monitor in that area, and have the hard drive barricaded in that area also, because inherently if you put a security system in a room where it's easily accessible and thieves break in, they could probably steal your security system and steal the hard drive and leave you with no evidence of to show the police.
To battle!
So, yeah, there is definitely an argument for screwing it down to the floorboards or putting it in a safe, a very heavy, probably bolted down safe type thing, or a metal cabinet. Every step, every thought is not, while it's nice to increase convenience, in a lot of cases, every step has to be considered as a step to increase or maintain security, because if you put one weak link in that chain of security, you are going to end up putting yourself in a situation where you might end up regretting your actions later on. So yeah, this has been a cool project. It's not going to be a super long project though. It may take long to get it finished, but it really was only 1 day's worth of work to figure out whether what I wanted to do to connect the two systems would work or not. And it really was just a simple make this adapter situation. It wasn't getting into it and hacking hardware or putting in a digital analog converter or anything like that. That would have been too difficult of a project.
Converting stored energy.
I probably could have done it. It just would have taken too much time, and I didn't want to do that. This is something I want to get going and get working as soon as possible. And not something that I want to experiment with or fiddle with too much, because it's you go too far with it and then it becomes a janky system that does not work. And for a security system, you want a very robust service that will always be working.
Protocol 7.
Is there anything else I can do? Not really.
Done.
The chain. So yeah, that was a long conversation. Let's get back to talking about games. We have a game here on Steam called The Ring of Truth that looks like it might be an text-based only game again. Let's look at the video. We're walking around an area, and I saw a game that looked a lot like this, but I mean, this could be just easily asset flip things. And this doesn't look like a game so much. I think I may have seen this exact game announced at some point. $5.39 discounted. English only. I don't see anything here, so this might be some kind of hidden gem, but I'm not going to put it on the follow list. It failed to impress on that first impression. Alright, so with those two done, and most of this one done, we are done with the America's account. Let's just switch over to the European account. And since I got into a rant talking about a nerd project, I'm now behind as far as news, so we'll try and burn through this. There may not have been a ton of news that happened over the weekend, though. TechRaptor has an article here. Humble Happy Hour 719, Crying Sons. This is the Humble Bundle. Publishing, signing with, promoting games that they're going to release. Crying Sons looks like it might be a pixel graphics style of game of some sort. Although the bits of gameplay I'm actually seeing seem to be more of a top-down StarCraft style real-time strategy. I jumped around that video quite a bit, but yeah, we'll see. We'll see if it's actually anything of interest. Let's see. Now, we don't have a reroll here, so I need Hunter class, Death Rattles, and Divine Shield minions. And I might reroll Divine Shield. We all need to do a Tavern Brawl. So if I just play Hunter, I probably will be fine. Let's play Custom Hunter on Ranked. Tech Raptor has an article here. The Surge 2 is a definite improvement over the original. Interesting. I don't remember the Surge 1 though. And the Surge 2 kind of looks like a first-person shooter, and that's about all I can tell so far. Wasn't the Surge 1 the game where you were kind of just fighting robots and you would get parts of their robots and that would become your weapons over and over again? The Surge 2 settings feels underwhelming. Surge 2's writing and feel off, according to this. So their first impressions don't seem to be particularly good anyways. Mech. All I've got is a bunch of mechs. Alright. So, I certainly wasn't super interested in the Surge 1, so I doubt I'll be super interested in the Surge 2. Let's end this turn here. EA, Gamatsu has an article. EA is sending out invitees to a closed alpha test for the new Plants vs. Zombies shooter, codenamed Picnic. Almost certainly this is Plants vs. Zombies Garden Warfare 3, I believe. I think Garden Warfare 2 already came out. If not, this is Garden Warfare 2. Unfortunately, the experience I think that occurred for people who played Plants vs. Zombies Garden Warfare 2 is it was alright for the first couple of weeks, and then they put in a ton of microtransactions and ruined the game. And I can't help but believe that that's going to be a similar experience for both Plants vs. Zombies 3 and Garden Warfare 3, which is probably what that is. I can't help but suspect that that is exactly how this is going down. This, and this, and this. Then in the turn. Hey, win streak bonus. Up to rank 14. I kind of don't care what rank we end at, but it is nice to see it going up. Try that again. Yeah, I see no reason to have any faith that EA won't ruin the Plants vs. Zombies games, either having a ton of microtransactions in it at the beginning and then having to change it so people will actually play it like they had in Plants vs. Zombies 2, or having a good game at the beginning and then ruining it with microtransactions like they did in Plants vs. Zombies Garden Warfare 2. Both approaches either before or after ruins the game, because inherently the problem is the microtransactions were in the planning from the beginning, and the microtransactions are the main focus. So yeah, I definitely would not be holding my breath for a good experience with Plants vs. Zombies. TechRaptor has an article here. Should low random drop rates be an obsolete mechanic Borderlands to Destiny and beyond? This feels like this is an opinion piece. Low random drop rates. I assume this means dropping guns that are of particularly low quality that are randomized. Let's see, the final chapter here is, perhaps that's why drop rates in loot-based games have been historically set to Scrooge levels of stinginess. It'd certainly be much harder to notice that your most exotic weapons are basically normal weapons with a little bit extra damage and a unique paint job if no one can get it to drop in the first place. Artificial scarcity and all. Since looter shooters aren't going away anytime soon and with Borderlands 3 right around the corner, it might be worth exploring the concept of making good loot easily accessible at the very least. Inherently, I would say the idea of getting rid of a lot of the garbage in the Borderlands series makes a little bit of sense, but it's almost a matter of percentages. If they got rid of 30% of the garbage, that would be fine, but inherently you can't go too far down that direction. Otherwise, when you get a good gun, it won't even feel like a good gun because it's so common that you get good guns. But you can definitely feel in my runs of Borderlands 1 and 2, I got maybe 4 or 5 great guns throughout an 80-hour playthrough and stuck with those great guns way too long. So getting a new gun every 5 hours, every 2 hours, even every hour would not be terrible. Even if it is just a slight improvement on my current great gun. Borderlands in particular, since it has like 6 to 8 weapon classes, it would be so easy to cycle through that and say, well, we haven't given this person a good pistol in a couple hours, let's give them a good pistol. Or we haven't given this person a good shotgun in a couple hours, let's give them a good shotgun. Meanwhile, get rid of the garbage, because a lot of that garbage guns, particularly in Borderlands, you don't break down the guns to any kind of core components. You have to go to a vending machine and play Menu Hero and to sell any of those guns, and that's not something that was a welcome experience, really. So yeah, they could definitely tweak that. The only thing against that is if you were playing Borderlands the way they wanted you to play it, which is to have 4 friends with you playing at all times, and that's weird. That's still their focus, even though they don't have crossplay working at launch, and they're not going to, and even though I think at least a significant amount of people who play Borderlands did not play it with 4 players playing. They maybe had 1 player or 2 players playing.
I wonder what this does.
Unity, precision, perfection.
I comply.
There's just a level there of a different experience. If you had 4 players playing and one was the shotgun character, and he worked his playstyle and his build worked so good on shotguns, then the other 3 players, whenever they got a good shotgun, are supposed to be communicating with that player and going, here's all my shotguns, see if any of them are good, and vice versa. You're supposed to be trading off guns. That doesn't really happen, though. Particularly for me, since I played Borderlands 1 and 2, at least for my channel, completely alone. But it doesn't happen for most players, so the balancing is definitely off. The other thing I'd say about Borderlands 3 is their promotion and art style is around these roses. I think the roses are probably just kind of a publication advertisement for the Cult of the Vault kids, and they won't really play as big of a role as possible. I don't think we will be collecting roses throughout the entire game as if they were the new collectible to get. And I have seen someone already get a tattoo, a Borderlands 3 tattoo, and it's with the roses. And I'm like, Borderlands 3 isn't even out yet. You don't know if it's a good game or not, so you should probably wait until then. And two, yeah, this is gonna be a very dated, bad idea of a tattoo very quickly. Moving on, Gematsu has an article, Infinite Stratos versus Colors expansion included, coming to Steam on August 2nd. So the 2014 released high-end 3D versus action game is coming to Steam. More Japanese-centric games are coming to PC, and it's nice to see. This is a anime characters fighting in mechs style game. Alright, on looks like football field in every instance. Maybe there will be different backgrounds and different arenas. One would hope. Fighting in a soccer field or football field would be kind of boring. But maybe this is the field that they fight on. What was the name of this? Infinite Stratos? Infinite Stratos? There might have been an anime about this a while ago, like 4 or 5 years ago. I don't think there's been anything called Infinite Stratos lately, though. Which would make sense. 2014, that would be 5 years ago, so there probably was something there. We're on a win streak bonus, and I think we've got enough time to kind of goof around here, so I'm just gonna stick with this and see if we can push the win streak bonus up. TechRaptor has an article here. The Humble Bundle publishing Pokemon-like MMO Tim. Humble Bundle is publishing a Pokemon-like MMO called Tim, which, alright. Of course, if it's an MMO, it's not my style of game, so I'm not sure I'm going to be able to cover something like this. And inherently, this is not the other one, the other Pokemon-like. It's weird that we're starting to see Pokemon clones now when we should have been seeing Pokemon clones a long time ago. In fact, we should have been seeing lots of them a long time ago. Maybe Pokemon Go in particular inspired people. This does very much look like a direct ripoff of Pokemon. It is, I assume, coming to PC, which changes the situation, I think, quite a bit, in a nice way. Although, if it is just an MMO, again, I can't play it, so my hopes lie on the other kind of Pikmin / Pokemon / farming simulator, Stardew Valley clone that I don't remember the name of. I would also say that there is something to be said about going backwards in a situation like this. Pokemon is inherently baby's first RPG, and so it has dumbed down, simplified mechanics, and really didn't take all the lessons it could have learned from RPGs that existed before the original Pokemon Red and Blue came out. And over the years, while Pokemon has iterated a little bit, it really hasn't iterated that much. So if I was to make a Pokemon clone, I would say, let's take the general concept of Pokemon and then add to it a lot of the lessons that we could learn from things like Dragon Quest or Monster Hunter or Final Fantasy. Any of those type of games that have been going on for a very long time also, and should be considerations too. There we go. Next game we have on Steam is called Ghostland. This says it's a strategy RPG, but to me it looks like a visual novel. Although there are items here, so this looks like it might be a Chinese RPG game, and the gameplay mechanic here looks pretty awful. So here you have a intro video, probably that's all it's gonna show. The text here is pretty small too. I bet this English language is not even supported. Yeah. $1.59 discounted. Actually it does support Japanese and English. It says it has full audio. I don't believe that. I don't see anything here though that makes it look like a good game, a good RPG or strategy game. And they're definitely not focusing on the RPG and strategy visuals. Right. This. And then.
Ooh, I wonder what this does.
That didn't help. This.
Quickly.
And this. And then the turn. Let's keep loading.
Your rage.
Next we have a TechRaptor article, Change Your Evil Wells in Rebel Galaxy Outlaw, coming to PC August 2019. So this is a prequel to 2015's Rebel Galaxy. Interesting. I've heard of Rebel Galaxy, but I couldn't tell you anything about it. This looks interesting. Although it is a fly around in space style game, if there's a lot of docking, if there's a lot of talking to people, there might be something interesting there. I don't think Rebel Galaxy is that game series that constantly is taking more funding for development and never finish the product. I think that's a different game. But I couldn't remember the name of that game either. Rebel Galaxy Outlaw, maybe there's something there that would convince me to play it, but I do certainly have that distaste for
Unity, precision, perfection.
I certainly have a distaste for playing space games. It's really just something that never appeals to me at all.
Your rage sustains me.
TechRaptor has an article, see Geralt of Rivia in action in Netflix The Witcher's official teaser. I don't like the way his face looks like in this at all. I feel like there's probably too few scars for what a Witcher is supposed to be. Probably too pale for what a Netflix series should be. I don't think a warrior would have his hair not tied back tighter than that, and his eyes are just way too dark. It's not even just like the pupils are dark, it's like they masked over his eyes with CGI to make his entire eye sockets dark. I don't particularly care about the Netflix series until it's out and then somebody can watch it and review it. They seem to have been somewhat split about whether it was going to be based on the video games or the book series, and now they seem to have finally confirmed to themselves, at the very least, that it's going to be based on the it's going to be based on the on the book series and not the TV series. I'm gonna watch the trailer over without showing it because I don't want to get caught on a content ID claim. There's probably been too many questions asked to the liking of the creators of the game, of the Netflix series, so that they seem like they've gotten a little snippy with the fans, which is not the appropriate way to treat your fans, certainly. If I could say anything while looking at this trailer, Geralt of Rivia is like really the only main character I'm seeing that's male, and every other character is female, and so I think there is this possibility that this is going to be more of a Fabio-esque beefcake female focused show, a Game of Thrones particularly targeted towards women, or from a female perspective, which the books in particular, Geralt of Rivia is more of a jerk, and he is not the character from The Witcher 3 so much. There was a lot of amnesia and growth that happened to Geralt of Rivia to get him to Witcher 3 point, and having basically a daughter-like character that he was looking for and trying to protect in The Witcher 3 also helped. Like, because he totally was a jerk in The Witcher 2. To the point where even playing the character, I didn't really like him. And so I think the Netflix series is going to try and focus away from that. I don't really see a lot in the Netflix series as far as a big enough budget to show a bunch of monsters or telling kind of grand story. So I imagine there's going to be a lot of conversations in rooms, in small areas, and that is what the Witcher 3 series was a lot of, but also there was a lot of wandering around the open environments. And honestly, yeah, if you considered The Witcher 3 as a game and you took out the fact that you could jump on a horse and run from one point to another point and get distracted by bandits or enemy or monsters to kill, if all the bandits and monsters were taken out of The Witcher 3, it really wouldn't be a very good game. And when you get into the Skellig Isles, I believe was the name of that middle section, and when you're in a boat and there's kind of nothing happening as you're going from one boat location to another to find sunken treasure, the game got incredibly slow and boring. On rare occasions you'd be attacked by like a harpy or a mermaid or something, but that was kind of it. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's exactly how the Netflix series plays out. I also wouldn't be surprised if the Netflix series is trying to be more Game of Thrones like in political intrigue and longer running. I also wouldn't be surprised if it's really short running too, if it's a tight 6 episodes like the Castlevania series. In fact, it could be about pretty much anything. So it is really just baseless speculation at this point to worry about it. Let's let it come out at its own time and its own pace. Let them put their best foot forward, put up their best presentation. The endless speculation of what a nerd show or potential nerd show is going to be is a dumb idea. It's dumb when you're talking about what the next Star Wars movie is going to be. I think maybe you're entitled to have 1, maybe 2 conversations amongst your friends about that. But by the time you go into a forum and you've had the same conversation multiple times, you've just now become so obsessed and so hyped towards the potential release of something that you've lost all objectivity and clear like viewing of it. You've either hyped yourself up that the show is going to be perfect, or you've anti-hyped yourself down so much that you couldn't be satisfied with the product at all. Let's see. Moving on, TechRaptor has an article. CMON and Explored are collaborating on a console Tabaru. Teburu. This is some kind of tabletop game, isn't it? Because I have not heard of any of these names. Interesting. Do the dice make noise? That would be cool. Smart dice. I could see building dice that could tell what side they landed on. In fact, I've seen a project to do exactly that, but I could not really imagine squeezing in much more than a very small buzzer into it. I don't think you could put like a vibrator inside of dice to make them shake, or a speaker of any quality that you could actually understand the audio that's coming out of its setup. Alright. I'm gonna just keep on doing this. But anyways, that's a tabletop article. TechRaptor occasionally gets me with those. TechRaptor has an article, Nowhere Profit Review, Samsara Blues. So this game came out of nowhere, this card-based, I think, RPG style game.
Converting stored energy.
Let's see what they have to say about it. Really came out of nowhere and got very little advertisements. Now TechRaptor is giving it a 9.5 amazing. I'll take this with a bit of salt, like maybe they are being way too generous, but TechRaptor would certainly hurt their credibility with me if it turned out that that was a terrible game and they're giving it a 9.5. Thank goodness. I got a little lucky there. The summary is Nowhere Profit is a unique and thoughtful single-place deck-building card game set in a fascinating Indo-futuristic world. It features compelling conveying management with a hint of the Oregon Trail and a highly innovative living card mechanic. Speaking of deck building games, apparently there's a mod for Slay the Spire where you can play as Sailor Moon, if that interests you. I heard that on, what is it, Total Biscuit's old podcast whenever they have a get together and talk, which is semi-regularly, but not weekly. There probably are several other Slay the Spire mods if you've played Slay the Spire to the point where you're bored and want to change it. I think that's an interesting mod for say, particularly. Definitely copyright infringing almost certainly, but interesting to say the least. And still trying to play Hunter class cards, so let's keep on playing. The pros they have for, what was the name of this game? Nowhere Prophet? Yeah. Are a fascinating Indo-futuristic world, which I've never heard that phrase, Indo-futuristic. Conveying convoy management, high-stake combat gameplay, and innovative living card mechanic, and magnificent art direction. Cons are it is often torturously difficult. So this might be a game that other people really don't have a great time with because it's way too hard. That is a possibility, although as I'm looking now on Steam, it doesn't seem like that's the majority of it. It seems like that's 84%, if I can read that right. 84% are positive reviews. It's rated very positively. I guess I'll put this on the wish list at this point, even if it's on the follow list. It's satisfied all the requirements. It's got over 20 verified purchase reviews. It's mostly positive. It looks like a game I'm interested in. Maybe not for $22.49, but yeah, if I see something good, I might as well put it on the wish list, and just in case somebody wants to gift it to me because they'd like to see me play it. In a weird way, a game like that, I guess, is the it is an example of a replacement for a game like Slay the Spire, because Slay the Spire is kind of old. I could see myself not wanting to play that now, just because, or playing it but not having a high motivation to play it right at this moment, because I'm just too late on it. Same is true for several games that came out last year. There were some really good games that came out last year that were kind of flash in the pan games, and so it becomes less useful to try and play them now.
What is my purpose?
Moving on, TechRaptor has an article, Dragon Quest Builders 2 review, Build, Fight, and Survive. This is a Minecraft clone, except for it's using Dragon Quest characters, and there's really enough funding behind, there could be enough funding at least behind Dragon Quest Builders to make it a quicker builder, faster experience than Minecraft was, because Minecraft really has no backstory or fan base to it. However, I don't think Dragon Quest Builders 1 was particularly well received, and I don't think I would really suspect this is going to be particularly well received. They gave it a 7.5 very good, which is an average score, frankly. Somebody says Dragon Quest Builders 2 is marked improvement on its predecessor. Good. Kind of needed that.
I wonder what this does.
Although the combat is still underwhelming, the rest of the package is sharp, charming, and loaded with stuff to build. Crops to farm and settlements to manage. Pros are charming, enduring writing, engaging, rewarding building mechanics, and more Dragon Quest. Cons are thin, clumsy combat and frame rate that struggles on a PS4 Pro. So if the frame rate is struggling on a PS4 Pro, that inherently tells you that this was a game that was not as well funded as it should have been. Because there really is no excuse for a game that looks like Dragon Quest Builders to run poorly visually. Like, there is no level of graphics here that should strain a PS4 Pro. Not one bit. So that's ridiculous. So yeah, seems like it's an okay game. That's where I would put it, as an okay game, not a great game, not something that I particularly would care about. Let's see, we'll take that. And this. This next game on Steam is tagged sexual content, so let me scroll through the screenshots and see if they're YouTube friendly. They seem fine. Next we have a game on Steam called Fun Fantasy Girls Jigsaw. This time it's interesting because they're getting away from the lesser known phrase of hentai or perverted anime, or just the pretty well known anime phrase, and they're just calling them fun fantasy girls. Also, this seems to me like this is a low effort jigsaw puzzle that's even more low effort than what he managed to kill all my characters over here. It's even more low effort than what we've seen up until this point. So they are really racing to the bottom, competition is. This game, this jigsaw puzzle game, which you no way should buy, is $2.39 discounted. It has 108 puzzles. It supports a whole bunch of languages. We still are getting a pretty consistent amount of these.
Unity, precision, perfection.
There we go.
Job's done.
I would almost assume in this case that this game just stole the anime pictures too. But whatever. I can't really make that accusation without having any evidence, can I? Let's see. Next game we have on Steam is called Fall in Love, My Billionaire Boss. And this looks to me like it's going to be a low effort visual novel style dating game. Now I wouldn't say this is a great drawing style, but there is something to be said here. This might be the beginnings of good Western animation style, with square jaws, by far older adult looking characters that actually look something like humans, compared to the moe anime style where they're barely humanoid in their proportions. That being said, it's just labeled as a simulation game. It's $9.99. English only, no full audio. Third party EULA for no reason. End user license agreement. Yeah, nothing here interests me. This developer Love Games. Seems like they plan on making quite a few of these. It's insulting. If I might for a moment here make a statement on behalf of females everywhere. It's insulting the title, Fall in Love, My Billionaire Boss. While everyone of every gender would love to fall in love with somebody who is rich, saying that out loud and making that be focused really is just propagating the gold digger claims that are often thrown against women. Not that there aren't women out there that are gold digging, and there are definitely also men out there that are gold digging. It's just not a good thing to put on as your first title. And how you can have, I guess you could have two bosses and they both could be billionaires. Otherwise, you already kind of know that you're gonna fall in love with this one character, so it's not much of a romance dating game. So then why are there two guys on the front? Yeah. So it seems like maybe you have two billionaire bosses that you can pick from, which isn't much of a dating game anyways. So you kind of are stuck. My only guess is that this is going to be an attempt of the Fall in Love, the first attempt of a series, and the next game will be Fall in Love something else. But it's also a insulting title for not the billionaire part, but for the boss part, because then that propagates the accusations that people are sleeping their that women often sleep their way up to the top in corporate environments and job environments, which I don't think happens really that often, or particularly any more than guys sleep their way up to the top in some occasions. So it's all focused around, I'm gonna fall in love with this guy, or I'm gonna pretend like I'm in love with this guy, or force myself to fall in love with this guy because he's a billionaire, because he's my boss, which is not, in my opinion, very much falling in love. So yeah, just the title alone puts you on the wrong foot. Gonna lose here. So of course that game's not making it to the fall list. The next game we have on Steam is called Super Pig, which seems to be a simplistic there used to be a game like this where you would do some running up and you would jump and you'd throw a javelin and see how far you could get the javelin to go. This is a video, and you can see there's like no animation at all. It's just this one pixel that is going here, and I guess it's a bouncing pig, for lack of a better term. Early access for 59 cents, English only. Yeah, this, I guess you shoot them out of a cannon. This is nothing. This is taking that old concept of a javelin throwing game and adding a Flappy Bird element to it and a bouncing element. Not something worth playing. And I should start breaking up recordings, but I'm not going to today. We are now done with 2 daily quests here. Let's move over to the Asian account. And jump in here. Gamatsu has an article. Sega has trademarked Knight's Dream Wheel in Japan, so a potential new Knights game is coming out. Interesting. Let's see. There, I don't think has been a new Knights game since 2007, so this is 12 years away. But they did, I think, put out some remakes of games like Knights. Like Spyro and Knights, I think, came out about around the same time. So I wouldn't be surprised if some remaster of Knights has been re-released. Let's see, we need to play Murlocs. Battlecry cards take 20 turns. I could probably get all of these done if I just play my Murloc deck. So I'll take that, play ranked, and go. Gamma Sutra has an article here. Girls Game Labs launches to host game development workshops for young girls. Is there a scientifically backed good reason to segregate these kind of classes for young girls in the UK? I don't know. Like, this would be girls aged 8 to 12 to workshops, which you're definitely disadvantaging boys 8 to 12 because there's no workshop being run counter to this for boys. Inherently, if they said Girls Game Labs launches to host game development workshops for young children, groups will be separated by gender, that would make more sense and feel alright. But this is just downright exclusionary, and unless you had some evidence that told me that girls do better when boys aren't around, that doesn't sound good. In fact, there might actually be science out there that says that girls do better in school when boys aren't allowed around, but I bet that same survey probably says boys do worse when girls aren't around. And so overall, on average, you do more harm for all of humanity by separating the students than you do keeping them mixed. And it's not a realistic experience in any way. Having segregated classes does not come close to what the work environment is. When you work in a job, most jobs, you're going to have to deal with both male and female co-workers, and so you need those social skills, you need that experience, you need to be confident enough to be able to work in an environment where there are men and women around, even if you're of the opposite gender and you're the only woman in the group or you're the only man in the group. I could certainly go on the rant where I've seen a lot of women seem like they complain about working in a male-dominated field and being intimidated because of that, and not being willing to stand up for themselves or speak up and give their ideas, and then complaining to their friends or complaining to Twitter that is this a real wait time or is this just glitched? Let's go ahead and quit and try and load back in. So yeah, these workshops seem prejudicial in the first place. Inherently, I will say that a lot of people have said Meko Games is typing a whole bunch of non-English words in the chat, and if he does it again, I'll have to kick him. I know he's probably just typing hi in different languages, but he's also spamming your chat. So I see you, Mikhail Games, and please put something of substance on the chat or don't post at all. Just come back into this and try this again now. So yeah, I could certainly go into the rant that too many kids in general are getting pushed into video game development and these STEM style technologies, which really these are going to just be hobbies for most people, not career paths. if you want to push kids into a good career path, my suggestion would be to push them into into something along the lines of being a nurse, a doctor, or a general customer service representative. People dealing with people. Those are the kind of jobs that will take the longest to be replaced. Whereas programming jobs, computer jobs, designing jobs are going to be few and far between. They just are. And we're eventually going to have AI programming programs to the point where only one person is needed to program the AI to make 100 programs. So yeah, I don't think if I was the parent of a young girl and I wanted her to get into game development as a hobby, if that's what she was interested in, she was 8 to 12, I don't think I would want to be part of a segregated class in anything, whether it's for game programming or anything else. I would not, as a parent, want my kids going to a gender segregated school. That is not that's not the way the real world works. It doesn't seem like that's a smart move. That feels like that is a bad message just to subconsciously send to children. Alright. There goes Mikkel Games for not following instructions and listening to me. Moving on, we have an article on Komatsu. Dragonstar Varnir for PC has been delayed to October. Your standard Japanese game strategy of announcing a game and then delaying the game. I can very briefly talk about what I've heard on the updates of the KyoAni arson attack. They're now saying the person that attacked him is most definitely suffering from a mental condition, which, I mean, Japanese would bend over backwards to make that statement true. The owner says everything physical and digital has been lost, and that he plans on tearing down the building and putting up a park. Washington Post or CNN or somebody put an article crassly and crudely, in my opinion, overemphasizing the fact that KyoAni had a larger, ever so slightly larger, like 23 to 20 employee base that was female. So all of a sudden this is a identity politics article about how these female employees were hit harder and more affected by being attacked and murdered by an arsonist. The reason why KyoAni had slightly more female animation artists is because that company in particular did more female focus centric animation, and that was their focus. And there's nothing wrong with that in any ways. It's applaudable, but it has nothing to do with a company being attacked by an arsonist. These articles read a lot like, oh, if it was 100% male animators there, it wouldn't even been reported as news because males are worthless. I mean, it really did not sound considerate or interested. I think there were also some articles that almost certainly came out talking about how anime is bad in general, and because of that, The Arsonist was to be applauded because anime often shows female characters in scantily clad clothing. They show male characters in scantily clad clothing on occasion too. So yeah, the anime is sexist idea was thrown out again, and that was some ridiculous articles there. There was definitely something not up to code for the building, in my opinion. The lack of fire exits, and safety there, lack of a good sprinkler system. The owner says he wants to tear down the building and put up a park, which the two things I've heard about from the owner as it's being translated from Japanese is he said everything was lost, I want to tear down the building and put up a park. That this sounds like he has very little intention of collecting any insurance he might have and rebuilding, so I imagine the employees of KyoAni may very well find themselves not employed. They're probably not getting paid anything right now because they were getting, most animators get paid almost nothing by the page, a few pennies a page type animation. So they're probably getting paid nothing. I bet the owner is going to disappear as much as possible, and all of those animators are going to have to try to find other jobs elsewhere, on top of struggling with PTSD or trauma from these events. It's probably for the better, though, that they don't all go back and work together, because that would be traumatic too. A clean break to a new, take 6 months to a year off and then start working at another job in a different city, in a different office type thing. Just no reminders of the horrific event is probably the better idea. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say there. This story will just slowly develop, I suppose, or it'll probably just fade into not getting updated on. Let's see, next we have a game on Steam called Gun Fu Heroes, which looks like it is a top-down twin-stick shooter in levels that look a little bit like Pac-Man levels, or Gauntlet levels, maybe. $4.49. It's not visually appealing. It's English only. Yeah. I don't see any reason why this would be on the fall list. Right. This. And here. Next we have a game on Steam called Ravenland, which is a roguelike deck builder. Now, if I jump back to here, you have a decent amount of art and kind of an opening animation sequence here. Now, it could be slightly similar to Hand of Fate series, with more of a collectible card gameplay mechanic, which would actually make some sense. So the questions I have here is, will people play this? Is this free to play? Does it have in-app purchases? Is this single player only, or is this multiplayer? It's early access for $8.99, single player. I'll put this on the fall list, but what is gonna happen here is people have to really, really like it, and it has to come out of early access. playing something like this, because it's single player, you know there's a limited number of levels. So unlike Hearthstone, I'm not going to just constantly end up going back to this over and over again on a weekly basis. Yeah. Alright. So I'll put Ravenland on the follow list and we'll move on. Next we have a game on Steam called Flutter Bombs, which looks like it's a shoot 'em up style game, except for you're playing as some kind of butterfly that shoots bullets against insects, which definitely does put a different look on it. One thing I would say though is it looks like you're kind of firing almost from a slight, mostly top down, but slightly at an angle perspective. So it's not a shoot 'em up in which you'd be shooting up, or a shooter which you'd usually be shooting to the right. So there might be some weirdness in that. It being like the 3D boss fights in Star Fox 64. That being said, I want to give this a little bit of a chance. It's early access for $7.49 discounted. English only. I'll put this on the follow list. You probably won't succeed, but it's worth a chance. Alright. We got some battle cries, we got some turns, and we got some murlocs. I really only need to play a couple more games. And we still have some news to talk about, certainly. Next game we have on Steam, Swords and Souls Never Seen. Which looks like it's an RPG. I kind of like this animation and this artistic style. It looks different.
For Doomhammer.
This might get boring as a RPG. I don't know if you actually walk anywhere or if you're just fighting battle after battle. Some fishing. There's some mini game. And there's items you get. This very possibly might be a little simplistic, but I like the art style. It has polish to it. It's already positive. It's $13.49 discounted. Single player only. Bunch of languages. Yeah, I think this deserves a follow. Let's see, we don't want any of these. Next game we have on Steam is called Handy, which clearly is a joke game. I think this is basically cat lateral damage, where the cats are designed to knock things off shelves. So for now you're playing as this disembodied hand, which, yeah, or it's probably playing some of the ideas of I Am Toast also into this.
I wonder.
Yeah,
There's little time.
not really sold on this. This seems like a joke troll game more than anything else. 84 cents discounted. Let's do this, and this, and this, and this, and then the turn. And this game is English and Russian in languages, which is a red flag. So yeah, this looks like a joke troll game. It's English and Russian, which makes me think more that it's a joke troll game. So I'm not going to put it on the follow list. Right. Next we have a game on Steam called Tribes of Midgard Open Beta. Looks like it's a top-down Diablo style game, survival style game maybe. The problem I think I'm gonna run into this game is if it's an open beta, it might be an MMO and have no real single player content or not much. There might be something here. These monster attacks might mean something. Let's see. Free to play, multiplayer online, multiplayer only. Yeah, English only. So I don't really cover free to play games, and I definitely don't play online MMOs type games. So if you want to try some mid card. It's open now, open beta now. So it's out there to try. That's as much coverage as I'm willing to give it. Let's see. Next game we have on Steam is called The Stranger Interactive Game. Now, game and interactive are basically synonyms. It's pretty impossible to have a game and it not be interactive. What I think they're trying to imply here is this is, I think, full motion video or stationary pictures with text choices. And it, to me, looks like it's actually stationary pictures and text choices, which then makes what we see here probably a fake example of what the game looks like. Or maybe it does show videos after it gives you the choices. So it's like a choose your own adventure story. $7.99, which is too expensive. English full audio, but also Italian and Spanish, which is an odd combination of languages. Yeah, I don't see anything here that looks like an entertaining enough experience as far as video game interaction. I need maybe one, maybe two more Murloc games. I think we already talked about this, but Gamma Sutra has an article here. Tekken 7 has cost $4 million in sales. Yeah, I'm pretty sure we talked about this. It surpassed 3 million last year in October, so it's taken it about 8 months, maybe 9 months to get another million. So it definitely is slowing down, and 4 million in sales isn't particularly the best, highest number a game can get. So yeah, it's doing good, it's doing fine, but it's not doing great. But it's newsworthy, it's an actual fact to report. TechRaptor has an article, Bullet Points, Nowhere Profits, Indo-Futurism. This is another article about Nowhere Profit after they gave it a 9.5. I imagine this article came out first, but it does definitely feel like Nowhere Profit is getting special consideration to be advertised. And that consideration is not being fully disclosed or made perfectly obvious to me. My guess, if I am to make a guess here, is that this is a case of maybe not money crossing hands, but the writers at TechRaptor being friends with the developers of Nowhere Profit and cronyism occurring. I think we already talked about this article, but otherwise this is a second co-founder leaving Blizzard. After 28 years, co-founder Frank Pierce is leaving Blizzard. This is significant because Pierce was the last Blizzard co-founder who hadn't left. Fellow co-founders Mike Morhaime and Alan Adham have both departed at this point, though Adham resigned in 2004 and returned in 2016. So yeah, this is the same article. Frank Pierce leaving, the last of the three co-founders of Blizzard gone. Which is basically to say Blizzard is pretty much dead at this point. And Blizzard makes Hearthstone, and Blizzard Well, maybe dead's the wrong phrase. Maybe Blizzard is now just no longer what it was, and it's now a completely different company at this point. That could be another way of phrasing it. But I would argue we're probably seeing the death of Blizzard, not the beginning of a whole new generation of Blizzard. At least until Activision just shutters the company or sells off the company. If Activision does something like that, then maybe there's more work that could be done with it. So, and again, that's just more reason and evidence to not be stuck on playing Hearthstone or any Blizzard property, because clearly the steam is going to run out. The talent is draining for Hearthstone and Blizzard games. Moving on, since we're trying to finish here, Gamma Sutra has an article. Tencent and the Pokemon Company are making games together. This may have been reported before. This very possibly is to make some Chinese-only Pokemon-style game. I would not be surprised if the whatever comes from this partnership never sees outside of China. Now, inherently, you could get into a bigger rant about how Tencent has become this giant video game company that it really doesn't deserve to be, because of the Chinese government forcing people to work with Tencent and give a percentage of all sales and profits to Tencent. And thus Tencent is also enforcing the Chinese government policies, government censorship policies. But that's something just to keep in the back of your mind whenever you hear about Tencent, and that is in part why people don't trust or like Tencent, is that it has not made good games to earn its place in the industry. It has not done anything to earn its place in this industry. It is a spoiled little rich kid of a company, from many people's perspective, that is getting daddy's money, or getting money handed to him, quite literally taken from other companies. Alright, we're gonna have to play a little bit more, I guess. That's fine. Still got a few articles. Tech Raptor has an article. Mighty Gunvolt Burst is coming to Steam this July. So it's a pixel retro platforming game.
For Doomhammer. For the Frost Wolves.
Let's see. Its initial release was on the 3DS, Nintendo Switch, and PS4, or is on that. Let's see what this trailer is. Seems like it has some characters from other games, like Galgun. Was that one of the characters? And Mighty Number 9, I think, was one of the characters. This is one of these Japanese announcements where it's just two people talking for most of it. So yeah, it seems like you can't stand still. You have to either be hovering slowly down or bouncing off the walls. This might be a weird game to try and play in particular. What were the characters? Like, if you get... There's Gunvolt from Azura Striker Gunvolt, Beck from Mighty Number 9, Ikori from Galgun, and then Kopin and Ray and Kurane. So characters are coming from Azura Strike Gunvolt, Mighty Number 9, and Galgun. That is a weird combination of characters, to say the least. But I don't know, maybe this developer worked on all those games and has some kind of connection, and that explains that. Otherwise, I would say it's just a strange collection. The idea that the characters from Galgun, the anime lewd game where you're shooting schoolgirls with heart bullets, the idea that any of those characters would move on to any other game series is rather ridiculous. I'll just point this out. Gametsu has Azure Lane Crosswave opening movie. I'm gonna watch this movie later on, but I won't waste people's time because I wouldn't be able to show it. So if you want to see it, seek it out yourself. Sorry. That's how it has to be. Let's see. The same is true for this Gametsu article, Digimon Survive opening movie and screenshots. I think pretty much all opening movies going forward, I'm going to kind of not watch on screen. We can see here you have some definitely older looking, differently animated characters for the Digimon series. The Digimon characters themselves look fine, but yeah, they seem rather old, like last year high school, potentially college. Whereas if you look at the original Digimon series, they started rather young and aged every season, for the original generation of characters at least. In fact, I've definitely remember watching Digimon when it first aired and being kind of shocked by the large amount of aging they went from the first season to the second season. Like it felt like several years had passed, or everybody just had a huge growth spurt. And maybe that was a change in the animators too. Moving on, Gametsu has an article. Turn-based strategy RPG Tears of Avia has been announced for Xbox One and PC. So looks like this is probably a Japanese turn-based RPG. There's a trailer here that's mostly pencil sketches, where I'd like to actually see what the game looks like. Yeah, it's one of these strategy placement RPGs, and it looks like it is happy to show a lot of the anime girls with underboob in some of their outfits, so might be slightly lewd, but I don't think this is a full-on adult game, and I don't think it's particularly going to go that direction. It's interesting here the way you have the life bars for 5 characters at the top, and then what probably are skill buttons at the bottom, or items you can use. So I don't think I've ever played a strategy game or seen a strategy game quite like that. There we go. So I'll be interested in that. Tears of Avia, AVIA, is coming out during Q4 of 2019. So, let's do this. And let's attack with this. And then transform, and then attack with that. And I think we'll just stretch this out if we can. Gametsu has an article, Ukulele and the Impossible Layer, alternate level states trailer. So this, I think, this is a new ukulele game coming out. Yeah, Ukulele and the Impossible Layers due out for the PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC Q4 of 2019. And the trailer itself is called Alternate Level States, which is interesting, certainly. Ukulele being the slight competitor to Super Mario Odyssey, I guess, would be the closest example. Also, it being a PC playable game, like in the same way that we need a Pokemon clone for PC, Ukulele plays in a small part as the PC Super Mario game, Super Mario World, Super Mario 64 clone style games. That, and that is all I can do. This was an interesting announcement. Komatsu has an article here. Mega Man X Dive has been announced for smartphones. This is being developed by Capcom Taiwan. So, a Mega Man for smartphones is not something that I think many people would want to play if it's a classic Mega Man style playing game. But if it's a completely different style of gameplay and game, there might be something here. They're showing very little of what the gameplay actually looks like in this trailer. They're hiding it behind a lot of flashing. It does look like it actually is just a Mega Man X style game with running and jumping and platforming on a cell phone. Ambitious to say the least. This is eventually what we're going to need to find, but this is not particularly what it's not particularly what you want to be the first person to have to develop, is a joystick and button, virtual joystick and button game that actually plays smoothly on all cell phones. Alright. We need to play 5 more Murlocs. Let's play one more game. TechRaptor has an article. Winter Wolves' Android developer account has been suspended due to, quote, censorship madness. I don't understand this. The Winter Wolves' Android developer account has been suspended due to what the developer is calling, quote, Google censorship madness. For a bit of a refresher, Winter Wolves is one of the many developers who were caught up in a wave of attempted censorship on adult-oriented video games on Steam more than a year ago. I don't remember Winter Wolves being a big part of that, but whatever. Now it seems they're facing similar issues on Android, and they've ultimately decided to abandon making games for mobile devices entirely. The announcement that Winter Wolves' Android developer account was suspended was released on the developer's official forum and posted to Twitter, where they talked in part about the reasons behind the suspension. Let's go ahead and trade out these. Quote, some violations, end quote, I don't know how you double quote here, some double quote violations were showing women with some cleavage, not even that much. I've heard that exact complaint made on the advertising and screenshots, or at least that's what I was giving Google the benefit of the doubt and saying that they must mean just on the storefront themselves. They can't be so insane that they would actually want no cleavage shown in any game. On the other hand, maybe Valve, maybe Google, in this case, is really trying to clean up the Google Play Store a lot, and they're going overboard. The quote continues, women in bikinis, which is, of course, an obscenity interjected there. And then a false copyright claim they were wrong since someone claimed to be the Bionic Heart author. Anyway, today they blocked me. I can't access the developer account anymore. All is gone. I'm not even bothered to get it. I'm not even bothering to get it restored, to be honest, since it was a mega pain every time I wanted to update something. Let's see. Another quote here is, I'll probably focus on PC only, which is much more developer-friendly environment than mobile, the developer said on forums. The developer further questions why there isn't a category filter for adult content in the same way Steam has implemented one. They understand the need to protect minors, but it seems like there's a solution here where everybody wins and Google decided not to take it. Rivia, the owner of Winter Wolves, filed an appeal and Google declined to change it, as he posted it in a follow-up tweet. Quote, not surprisingly, Google Play has rejected my appeal because of multiple policy violations of sexually explicit content policy, which means women in bikinis in practice. They suggest I find an alternate method for distributing my apps and I'm planning to follow their advice, lol. Honestly, yeah. This is a great point where Steam's app should be where these games get distributed, and games for cell phones should get distributed, at least Android phones. I'm not sure that you could get the Steam app to install apps on iPhones. And certainly Apple has been like pro censorship on their storefront by quite a lot more than Google has so far. But yeah, if you bought a game on the Steam storefront and it was an Android only game, or it had an Android built-in game, and the Steam app on your Android phone installed those games, side-loaded those games, that would be so much nicer and better to have all your games in one place. But in general, I don't think making mobile games makes sense. And inherently, this makes me wonder about a game like Destiny Child, which is on the Android storefront. Even in its censored format, there are definitely girls in bikini-like outfits. There are definitely girls with cleavage. So it seems like there is clearly a lack of unified enforcement as far as Google's policies. The article goes on further to say that Google Play represented 12% of Winter Wolves' income, which is a noticeable amount of income. I don't think anybody would appreciate losing 12% of their paycheck, but not a big amount of income. And see, they have a link here to check out the catalog on Steam, so we can see kind of who we're talking about when we talk about Winter Wolves games. Let's see. They're the developer. I think this is all YouTube family friendly enough. Here you have a game called Roommates that's just like people in bikinis looking fine there. Here you have slightly revealing clothing. The game Love Bites, I believe, is one of the visual novel dating simulator games I considered. I don't think it was particularly good. Let's see. None of these look like they're anything other than slightly lewd visual novel things. Maybe there's a few nude scenes in the others in an uncensored patch or something, but there's not really anything here that seems too extreme. Also, there's not anything here that looks particularly too great as far as these games. But yeah, I don't recall this developer even being one of the ones that had a problem with Steam. Now, if it weren't for the fact that I've heard this complaint or a very similar complaint with the Google Play Store in a relatively short amount of time, I would almost accuse Winter Wolves of manufacturing drama, but that definitely doesn't seem like that's the case there. Alright. Alright, moving on. Gamma Sutra has an article. Get a job. Sony PlayStation, Tequila Works, and more are hiring. So if you want to be a lead character artist at Cold Iron Studios in San Jose, California, or a game design instructor at CG Spectrum working remotely, or a senior producer at Tequila Works in Madrid, Spain, or a global partner and marketing manager at Sony PlayStation in San Mateo, California. See, this is an admission right here that once they moved Sony PlayStation to California, they lost all of their global partners, and now they're trying to find somebody to save their butts now that they're losing all of these partnerships that Sony of Japan had established and maintained for decades. It was a really, really bad idea to move your headquarters that way, in the way that they did. Next game we have on Steam to consider is called Gangsta Women. This looks like this is a low effort beginning of a demo, not really a game. I like this character, but this is probably an asset flip. You can see here in the video it's running at a horrible frame rate too. So even if this was early access, this game doesn't look great. Some of the screenshots make it look kind of interesting, but the video itself betrays it and shows that there's no AI in the enemies, and that the frame rate runs terrible, and that everything here is pretty much an asset flip. It's an ambitious asset flip for sure. You're fighting dragons, but it's so glitchy, you can tell. It's $1.79 discounted, English full audio, bunch of achievements, 6 achievements.
I wonder.
That's definitely not making it to the follow list. Alright, this, and then this, and then this, and then end the turn. Gamma Sutra has an article here. Sega ends its publishing partnership with narrative studio Interior Light. We may have talked about this before. Yeah, we did. This is repeated news. So we can kind of see that there's not a ton of new news happened over the weekend. But we're starting to see, I hear September will be the real busy time. So we'll start to see more things, in particular in September, start coming out and get announced. Here we have a game called Orc Raid, which seems like it's just like an infinite clicker. Whether you're using an arrow or wand, it seems like you're just constantly clicking it, and it's just constantly moving back and forward. This looks like it is the beginnings of an idea of a game, but it doesn't feel polished enough to actually be a game. You have too much of the screen centered around UI elements. You have a redundancy of fighting the same orcs over and over again. You have backgrounds that look very simplistic. Like, you might find 10-20 minutes of entertainment around this game, but I suspect you'll be very much bored by the 30-minute mark. This is $3.49 discounted, English with full audio, allegedly. Gotta play. double up on the death rattles. Might as well. Let's see, next we have a game on Steam called Chibi Volleyball. Now, I don't know what particularly the reason would be that you would want to play as chibi characters, meaning really, really small, short, toy-like characters, toy-like anime characters. I don't know the reason for that.
Unity.
I don't know why you'd really want to play a volleyball game that's a flat 2D volleyball game. It seems like this is probably a mobile game that has been ported. $1.19 discounted, English only. It's also suspicious, certainly, when you see a game that's Japanese art and Japanese phrases, and then it's English in the language only. Let's see. Let's do this. I think I probably could have done better there. Let's see. Next game we have on Steam is called Toho Fantasia. I'm still not sure what Toho means, but I think it's these styles of games, or a series of characters in shoot 'em up style games. I don't think I'm inherently wanting to play a Toho game just because it's a Toho game, though. Not yet. I may play some games that have Toho characters in them, and then that might be a backdoor entrance to maybe trying some of these bullet hell shooters. Although I know I'm going to be terrible at any bullet hell shooters. And yeah, they are magical girls in shoot 'em ups. That's as much as I've figured out about Toho. Very positive. English not supported, free. So I imagine you probably could play it anyways. The interface is Chinese and Japanese subtitles and English subtitles, although it says English not supported, so the labeling is at best going to be spotty on that kind of stuff. But I imagine you don't need to understand the interface too much to figure out which button shoots and which button drops a bomb and which button on the control stick moves left or right. But yeah, since that's a free game, I don't think I need to go any further details with that. TechRaptor has an article. Overwatch Roll Q is finally coming to quick play and competitive. Apparently Roll Q was in some of the other gameplay styles. This, I imagine, will allow you to pick the character you actually want to play, or at least the role you want to play, whether you want to play healer, defender, or attacker type things. I don't know much about Overwatch, so I'm not going to get into any more details than that, but it does sound like a little bit of an improvement has been made to Overwatch, which is nice. That being said, I still think Blizzard is falling apart at the seams, and I don't think Overwatch can keep it together. Next, we have a game on Steam called Hellsinker, which is a shoot 'em up game. It's rated positively, but it is a bullet hell shoot 'em up, and I think in general I'm still dismissing all of these games as something that I really couldn't play. 10% off for $8.99. It supports English, Chinese, Japanese. Yeah. So if that's your type of game, I guess that's there. And there's really nothing else to say about it. Oh yeah, and I never logged into that adult game from Friday to figure out what that was. But I still won't be able to log in right now, so that is that. That puts me at the Humble Bundle store, and although I'd like to buy the Very Positive Bundle 3, I don't think I can afford it. And there are no other games bundles except for the PlayStation bundle, which has about 18 hours to to go. And that, at that point, puts me on, I believe, back to my Twitter homepage, but they've changed Twitter on me over the course of this stream, and now my homepage looks completely different. I had heard somebody complaining about this new look that they have for it, and boy does it look like garbage. Yes. Let's see.
What to do?
Interesting. I'm seeing someone complain to Team YouTube about their channel being demonetized and then taking 7 months for them to not respond to them about why is it demonetized or can it be remonetized.
Give that minion a turn to get ready.
Let's see. Job listing, we'll talk about that later. Oh man, I'm getting like every reply from Team YouTube. That's gonna be ridiculous. There's an ad for push notifications. Let's close that. This is I'm gonna have to mute Team YouTube at this point because they will just push my Twitter feed down every single time. Like, oh man, this is ridiculous. So let me just try to stream through this really quickly and see if there's any actual news that I can even get through this. This is why people don't like changes to their home pages and things like that. Nutaku has a free-to-play Android game called Project QT. If you're interested in that, you can search that. That's a TechRaptor article. Microsoft CEO says the company is well positioned to succeed in what's going to be a much larger game market thanks to the focus on technology and services like Xbox Live and Game Pass. No duh, of course he would say something like that. Let's see. Monster Hunter World celebrates 13 million in sales with big bonus for players. Nice. So Monster Hunter World 13 million in sales, Tekken 4 million in sales in a lot longer amount of time to get that 4 million in sales. Although Tekken's a fighting game, Monster Hunter is Monster Hunter. It's different. NetEase opens a research and development studio in Montreal. I'm just going to mention some of these articles and not open them up and talk about them on Wednesday. Let's see, there's a job listing. We'll talk about that on Wednesday. I immediately want to go back to my old Twitter feed setup. Like, this is awful. This is downright awful. Nintendo is facing a class action lawsuit over the Switch controllers drifting / breaking. I'm not sure. We'll see where that goes, but I mean, I don't know how much to really report on that other than people are upset. And by the looks of it, that's all the new tweets. Because I'm seeing old tweets now, but I can't be 100% certain because there could be newer tweets at the bottom. Let's see. Ubisoft pledges to support open source 3D creation tool Blender. That'll be interesting. Blender, if it got more financial support, is from Ubisoft in particular is a better idea than Ubisoft making their own internal 3D modeling software. Let's see, is there any other news? Is there any other news? I'm basically having to scroll down all the way to the bottom just to see if maybe this new news feed will decide to refresh and show new things. Now, Twitter has for months now had this problem of there being new tweets below old tweets below older tweets, so nothing was chronological at all, and it did inevitably require me to scroll all the way down to the bottom of my Twitter feed every single time I looked at it, which is not an efficient way certainly to bring in new information. I would much prefer something like RSS feeds where you get the information once, and once you mark it as read it disappears, or emails, once you delete an email or mark it as read it disappears forever. But the way things are presented here does definitely open the opportunity for you to just have to look at the same thing over and over again, which is not efficient. And I believe I've hit the bottom, and there's no button at the bottom that says back at top or anything like that. Okay, well, looking at Hearthstone, we got more than our fair share of recording of daily quests done, so we're in a good position for Wednesday. So that's going to be it for this stream. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below in the description box. And if you want to support me even further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.